The origin of intention. A characteristic feature of the relationship people have with the outside world is that anything new is eventually treated as something mundane. Like clouds in the sky, reality constantly changes in appearance, but the rate of change is too slow for us to perceive. The movement of material realization of the alt space is like movement involved in cloud formation. We can only perceive it when it is captured on film and the footage is sped up. Even the freshness of change that brightens life in short bursts dulls just as quickly. The unusual becomes the ordinary, and the delight of the feast dissolves into everyday routine. Life becomes boring. Just as a rhetorical question, we would like to ask, what is boredom? It is difficult to give a comprehensive and intelligible definition of boredom. It would be easier to describe how to fight boredom. In an attempt to survive the monotony of everyday life, the heart and mind make up all kinds of toys and games to help us experience something new and unusual. A toy is a good remedy for boredom, and a game is an even better one. Games like skating, hide and seek, and catch are popular because they bring joy. As people grow older, they create more complex games from sports to virtual reality, often calling them work or professions. In truth, almost every profession can be seen as a game. Adults, like children, are just playing. They've simply elevated their games with a sense of self-importance, labeling them as work. Both take a very responsible attitude towards their activities. Ask a child what they're doing, and they will answer you with great seriousness, even sincerity. I am playing. Try distracting an adult from their work, and they will respond with indignation. I'm doing something important. So we can conclude that the game is a very serious matter. What does a child do when they're not occupied with a game? As a rule, they just muck about. So what about the grown-ups? They slob about. Well, at least that's what the adults call it. But doing nothing soon becomes boring, and then you want to play a new game. So why do we need games if only to relieve the boredom of life? Let us put the question differently. What causes boredom? Insufficient stimulus, perhaps? This question is not as trivial as it might seem. The basis of our passion for games and play is as ancient as the world we live in. What is the fundamental need of living beings? Survival and the instinct for self-preservation? This is the accepted convention, although it is not the correct answer. Could it be the desire to reproduce? Again, this is not the right answer. So, what is it then? The primary need is to be able to independently manage our own lives. This is the fundamental principle underlying the behavior of all living beings. Everything else, including survival and reproductive instincts, are a consequence of this main principle. In other words, the goal and purpose of all living beings is to control their reality. However, it is impossible to control reality if the outside world exists independently of you and behaves in a totally uncontrollable or even hostile manner. There will always be those who try to take what's yours, push you aside, or use you for their own gain. It feels hard and frightening when life seems out of your control, as if it's happening to you instead of you living it. This leads to a deep and often unconscious urge to control everything around you. This conclusion to control one's reality will come as a surprise to many. Hasn't it always been obvious that the survival instinct was primary, and now you're telling us that in fact it's just a consequence of something more fundamental? It only seems strange at first. When you think about it, whatever activity a living creature is engaged in, including survival and reproduction, everything comes down to the attempt to bring the reality of the world under control. This is the key and primary origin of all intention underlying the activities of living beings. Inactivity is the absence of control. Consequently, boredom as such does not exist. What exists is a consistent and insatiable thirst to control one's reality, to somehow subject it to your own will. In this sense, a game is a way of modeling controllable reality. For example, some birds enjoy playing with pine cones. By making the pine cone part of their game, they turn an independent, uncontrollable object into something they can influence, gaining a small sense of control over their reality. Skating, skiing, surfing are all forms of control, letting reality carry you while gliding it in the direction you choose. Most games follow a similar principle: be what I want you to be. Some games are easier to lead, while others are more challenging, but they all share the same essence: using your will to influence and direct what happens. To the observer, any visible spectacle is a game that models control over reality. Music, books, films, and shows captivate the heart and mind, offering an escape from tense thoughts. As we follow the character's journey, we watch a controlled, predictable version of reality, allowing us to relax and enjoy the experience. Games in which we play with reality never cease even when we're sleeping. The heart and mind take great pleasure in the world of dreaming, where reality is subtly shaped to the light puff of intention. Finally, games of the imagination are another acceptable method of shaping reality. A person will even make up a reality that does not exist yet just to play at being in control. Science fiction is unusual. It remains unusual for as long as it's unreal and far removed from our lives. Reality is commonplace because of its closeness, and yet it retains a quality of being inaccessible because it's hard to influence. Generally speaking, none of these games are made up in an effort against boredom. Everyday reality is not boring, it is mundane because it is uncontrollable. It is difficult to make everyday reality conform to the rule, be as I want you to be. And therefore, as human beings, we strive to hide from the nature of reality in a game where everything is simple and predictable. Reality often feels unyielding, shaped by circumstances and societal roles. For every I want, there's a you can't, and for every give me, there's a you're not getting it. The question is, how do you navigate and thrive within these limits? As a rule, people are fairly unambiguous in their behavior. In trying to get what they want, they try to influence their environment in a linear, direct way according to the principle of give it to me. Direct influence based on immediate contact is one form of control, but it is not the only form of control, and it is by far not the most effective. We will go about things in a different way. We will hide our hands behind our back and make the world meet our desires halfway. Everything that comes next will relate to how we do this. Transurfing is a technique for controlling reality without direct impact, only not for fun as in a game, but for real.